Jonathan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Phil. It's good to see you. Good to be on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So you have this um technique that you are trying to help people understand the world and de-stress a little bit. So help me understand that and then maybe just kind of explain your journey from there.
Yeah. So, what I'm working with is I have something called life success tools. And the whole idea is that, you know, we all grow up in different households, in different neighborhoods, different parts of the world, different education, and so forth. I grew up in a neighborhood in New York. A couple of guys I hung out with when I was young and got in a lot of trouble with went to prison, and I didn't. And I think it's just simply that my mom moved us to Texas from New York when I was young. And so I hung out with a whole different crowd of people, you know?
Nice. Yeah.
And so the world's not easy to understand. You understand it from the perspective that gets downloaded into your head when you're younger, right? Whatever that is, your race, your creed, your religion, your belief systems, your education system, whether you had good teachers, bad teachers, whether you had supportive parents or parents who were just stressed out trying to, pinch pennies together to get food in the fridge, right? So we may even grow up next door neighbors, but we still grow up in different worlds. And so what happens is, like, I'm coming up on 64 here. And so when I was young, the world was really predictable for most people. There was the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was Vietnam, there was Nixon, there was a couple things here and there, but for the most part, the world was fairly predictable. My dad worked in the same job for over 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing for over 60 years. My mom worked, in her profession for 50 years. So it's like people expected to do the same thing for a long time. And as we know right now, things are changing so fast. It's a blur. And Phil, the way I talk about it with people is like you can imagine being up in front of the airplane as a pilot on a clear day. You can see 150 miles in each direction, right? But then you hit this like fog bank where like the future has come in so fast to us now that it's hard. You don't have any visibility. You're flying blind.
Yeah.
And so what you're flying with, which you're quote making sense with, which your operating system is what you've already got in your head,
Hmm.
what was given to you for the most part, and what you maybe have added on since high school or what have you. And so the challenge is you may be flying with tools that are insufficient to meet the present conditions that we're in the air with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
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 So my mission is to help people understand the broader perspectives, maybe to take different perspectives at different times, right? Because we know if we have to drive with just one eye, it's really hard to drive, right? Especially if you're drunk, but don't do that. But it's like, if you have to drive with just one eye, it's hard, right? If you have two eyes and two points of view, it's better. But if you got that rear view camera and so forth that helps you back up and park and what have you, you have even more clarity. And so if we can help people have multiple frames of thinking,
Hmm.
multiple what they call mental models, and multiple ways of seeing the world. Now they can assess it from different standpoints and from different viewpoints to get a better understanding of what's actually happening.
Yeah, about what you were saying about how fast life is coming at you, and
Yeah,
it's so true because we're inundated with so much information daily. It's like, especially if you're a social media user, which most people are,
right.
you've got the complaints of 8 billion people on your phone, you know? So
Yeah,
it's a lot of information to process. And then, and then you get people that really think like it really affects them. Like I
right.
can read a story about something that's going on somewhere else, but like, okay, whatever, doesn't really affect my life. But then you get someone who's more empathetic to things, and it really affects them, and they just get stuck on it. I've said on the show a few times that we're all very layered individuals. People are onions,
Yep,
you know,
that's right.
and you have to look at everybody's perspective as to what try to put yourself in their shoes a little bit.
Right.
I mean, and it's not always easily done. So, what are some of the techniques that you, without obviously divulging too much, but what
Oh,
are some of the things that you do to prepare people to do that type of thing?
well, there's a couple of conversations to be had. The first one
Hmm.
is that our bodies, depending upon whether we're in the fight or flight stress mode
Hmm.
or we're in the rest and relax and just hang out mode, our bodies actually change our brain chemistry depending upon which one of those we're in. So, you see all the time people say, well, I was just so freaked out. I didn't know what I was doing. Or, when I found out about X, Y, or Z, or when something happened, I panicked. What
Hmm.
happens then is you're actually working from the back of the brain, not the front of the brain where the real technology is, right? This is the front of the brain is what makes humans special in a sense, right?
Hmm.
It's our ability to think forward. It's our ability to calmly assess. It's our ability to say, I got, this idea versus that idea, which one's better? When you're in the back of the brain, it's like you're just reacting. Like a dog that gets hit by a car but doesn't get killed, it gets wounded. It'll you
Mhm.
go over to take it out of the road, it'll bite you because it's all
Right.
stressed and freaked out.
Mhm.
People are the same way.
Right.
Oftentimes when someone's you come up on a friend or spouse or partner, what have you, or kid, and suddenly they're barking at you, it's like, well, it's because they're stressed out. It's got nothing to do with you, perhaps. Or maybe what you did was normal, or maybe just you just got off on the wrong foot on something, but they're all freaked out because they're in that fight or flight, freeze, freak out mode. And so what we do is we know we want to really be in the front of the brain, want to be in the calm, rest, relax, so you can contemplate or think about the issue or the problem without instantly responding with fear or anger, right? So number one is to where are you? You got to notice, you got to be aware. Where are you now in your body and brain? Are you feeling calm and relaxed? Like you and me, we're just hanging out, right? I mean, we could be having a coffee right now, sitting down or whatever, and just hanging out and having a good time. So we're both relaxed. But if we're all freaked out, like eyes get big, the heart rate goes up, blood comes from the limbs into the chest, and there's this kind of like tightness and everything else, and we feel like we have to make decisions fast. Now, the challenge is that all these things that you're talking about, social media, it's like, the war and the politics and the economics and this and that. There's 1,000 things to get all upset about because social media, not the kind we're creating by creating information based and conversation based, but the kind that's designed to spark you real quick and get you to swipe and get all angry. That social media is actually making people make more bad decisions in life.
I agree.
So not only is it overwhelming them, Phil, it's also reducing their dopamine, which is making them stressed out and tired. And it's making their decisions go from I can think about it to, oh God, what am I going to do?
Yeah. You know what I've done in my life is that when I get to a point to where I'm angry, I step
Mhm.
away and then I give myself a minute. Recently had a issue with a coworker and it was a huge miscommunication, right? This person decided it was a good idea to confront me about this. And so I'm a very prideful person. That's one of my
Mhm.
downfalls. So I started to raise my voice and I immediately said, "No, I'm not doing that." I walked away and to reset, I clapped my hands and I walked out of the area we were in and I was able to go and think about it before. That's the thing that people don't tend to do is they don't want to take the breath to think about it. They feel that because it's not about being what's fair, it's about what's being right in their brain, right?
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't, nobody ever wants to be wrong, myself included. So we think that when we yell or we scream that our point is going to be made more,
Right.
and it's not. It makes you look like a babbling idiot.
Right.
To,
I've been there.
not to put too fine a point on it, but so I think if people took more time to think about what they're going to say, we wouldn't have as much hurt in the world.
Right.
So take a look at there was a recently there was a not recently, it's been a while back, I guess. There was an interview with Elon Musk, and I don't know if you like him or not, it doesn't matter. But the point is that when he's asked a question, he takes time to think about the question before he answers,
Yes.
right? So that's
Yes.
learning, or that's him, thinking and formulating a thought and then being able to do it appropriately versus us just going, "Blah, blah, blah, blah,"
Right.
right.
Yep.
What was the catalyst of this for you? Like, where did it start?
Yeah, let me drop into that in a second. I just want to
Sure. Yeah.
something you said was really powerful and important, which is that you stop and you break, right? So what you're doing is you're doing what's called a state break. You're in a state where you're hyped up, you're angry, someone said something, they confronted you, they misinterpreted you all wrong, you're trying to get it right. It's like, hold on, let's just take a break right now. Right? You
Yeah.
clap your hands.
Hmm.
I do that too. I do a little state break. Like,
Hmm.
okay, hold on, I got whoo, let's get
Hmm.
because look, you said something also that's very true. We all want to be right because the consequences of being wrong from an evolutionary biology and psychology standpoint is we get kicked out
Hmm.
of the tribe
Yeah.
or we don't eat, right?
Yeah.
So, so the thing is, we don't want to. We have to shift our perspective. What we want to say, Phil, is it's not that I want to be right; it's that I want to get it right. And I
Exactly.
think you asked what we can do in there as well. And what I would say is that we have to understand everybody's doing the best they can,
Hmm.
except for about 2% of people, which are real a-holes and sociopaths and all that kind of crazy stuff. And some of those people need to be locked up because they're dangerous. But fundamentally, for the most part, we're all just trying to get it right. We just don't know it. And we get afraid we want to be right. It's a natural thing. And so we have to give ourselves the same humility and the same forgiveness that we would give to a friend who
Hmm.
screwed up with us too, right? And I think in some sense, guys, as guys, if we're friends, we're buddies, we hang out, we do that naturally. We can call each other names or like get pissed off and say something. They're like, man, let's go have a beer or let's go have a Coke, whatever.
Right.
And so we can do that.
Hmm.
The other thing I think that's really important to notice is that when we notice our state change, when we notice that we're the thing is to pay attention to how we feel in the body, right? The body's giving us message. That's evolution. That's whatever you want to call it, design in the body to give you a signal. It's like, the old blue screen of death in the computers, right? Or, your screen starts freezing up, you're using up too much bandwidth. When we do that to ourselves, we got to break, change state, come back and say, hey, I think we got off track here. Most people get off track, they get upset. Let's reframe together. So that's number one. The second thing is I'm going to come back to what you asked, which is,
Yeah.
what was the catalyst for me?
Mhm.
And what I can say is that I grew up in a very stressed, challenged household as a youth. My parents divorced when I was two. Mom, a single mom working multiple jobs. She did the best she could do. She was amazing. And she had some tough times too. And back in that day, back in the 60s and 70s, people would drink a lot, smoke, drink, and try and
Mm.
de-stress. The
Yeah.
problem is that alcohol is not necessarily a de-stressor. It, it, it
Right.
lowers barriers. So if
Mhm.
someone's already angry and they have a couple of drinks, they can get angrier. And so I began noticing and watching people at a young age and realized that there were differences in the way people thought, the way they paid attention to how they felt, and how they responded when you say something. And so after skip the middle part, I went to law school, practiced law for a couple of years. I wanted to do something different than I ended up doing. And I realized that almost every lawyer I knew was stressed. A lot of them were just boozing it up. A number of them were using cocaine because that was the thing in the early 90s.
Right.
Lots of affairs, lots of trouble and difficulties and messing up. And this was just in general in the legal profession.
Mhm.
And I realized they all had one common denominator: stress.
Yeah.
Stress. So I
Mhm.
became a stress consultant while I was finishing paying off my school loans. I got with a firm that would let me work 4/12s. So Monday through Thursday, I just like blasted out work and did nothing else. And then I had 3 days off where I could study, learn, rest, and grow. And I became a stress consultant to small businesses and to lawyers. And that's
Yeah.
how I got started on the whole path.
Okay. Yeah, and we have so much stress going on right now. It's pretty bad, right? Like, I mean,
Dude,
like I drove past a gas station and it was almost $4.50 for a gallon of gas.
right?
And I live in Florida, so it's one of the I'm not used to that. That's some California shit, you know.
Uh, You
But
know,
no, yeah.
I was gonna say, typically by the courthouse there's bail bondsmen. Now by the
Mhm.
gas stations there's kidney sales.
Ex exactly. Like, you gotta sell your firstborn for a half a gallon of gas. No, but it's ridiculous, and so, I mean, I can see where, what you're doing would be helpful to people, like, learning them like, teaching them how to de-stress and manage because God knows, stress will kill you faster than anything,
Yes.
like, I know I've mentioned it on the show before, but I was listening to interview with Billy Bob Thornton,
Mhm.
and he's a smoker, but he only has, like, 5 cigarettes a day. 0 is best, okay? We'll start with
Right.
that. But his doctor said, "Listen, if that 5 cigarettes a day keeps you from being so stressed out, because the stress is worse than the cigarettes, right? So, and he's like, "Have the cigarettes. I don't care,
Right.
but as long as you find a way to get rid of that." So, but then again, when people try to find a way to de-stress, what happens is then they get the little brain working, right? And that brain's like, well, I should be doing this. I'm going to miss a bill. I'm going to do that. So they don't want to take a vacation, and not necessarily they have to go to Europe or anything like that, but they don't take time for themselves
Right.
to de-stress, and it's a snowball effect because I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I grew up very, very poor, right?
Right. Yep.
Because my dad, he had a problem with money.
Right.
He liked to spend it. That was his problem. So whether we had it or not. So my mom was the breadwinner because he was whatever, and so it was very much it. How can I put it without sounding like a complete a hole? I had enough, but it was just barely. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Right.
It made me a very hard worker in my adult life. It made me not want to be in some of those situations where I could see my parents struggling if they were going to pay rent or pay a bill. So I can see where especially in today's day, in today's time, I can see where people are just constantly worried and constantly stressed. So
Yes.
it goes back to what I said earlier. What you're doing is fantastic, and there's nothing worse than having that anxious, hand wringing,
Yep.
something bad's going to happen feeling.
Yep.
So I mean, what do you recommend for someone who's trying to remove some of that anxiety out of their life?
Yeah. So there's a number of things we can start with. The first is that you're right. Be right here, right now.
Mhm.
It's an old pop phrase, but be
Yeah.
here now.
Right.
Because if we're thinking about the past and we're worried about the things we did before, we're feeling shame, blame, whatever, all that anxiety, stress, anger, what have you, that's just sort of like it's sort of like trying to put a 20-pound backpack on your back and go
Mhm.
walk out in the sunshine, 100-degree heat. You're going
Yeah.
to sweat and it's going to be really hard.
Yeah.
And then if you want to think about the future, you can add another 20 pounds in there, right?
Mhm.
So we don't control the future.
No, we don't.
There's 8 billion people. There's 3,000 billionaires. They run the world. We don't. I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't get the manual that says how to run the world,
No, me
and
either.
I didn't get the bank account to do that either. Right?
Yeah.
Or go to those schools.
Mhm.
But the funny thing is that we have an incredible amount of agency, which is control, personal control over the center of the dot. You know, the old target, the archery
Mhm.
target,
Yeah.
target store, right? We control that dot about maybe 30%, right? So about 30% of our life we can control. That's our personal self. And if you got a dog, you maybe got like 40% over the dog, right?
Mhm.
Make sure it doesn't pee inside. So it's like, we've got some control there. And then the next step out is we can know our friends and family well, right? As best as we can and collect around us the right kind of people. Now, look, I grew up with some people, they're not bad people. They just did some bad things, right? And
Right.
all around us in the world, you'll see, I mean, I knew lawyers who went to prison, right? Because they
Well,
did some bad things, right? You hear
yeah.
about it, you read about it. But fundamentally, your physical environment is going to determine how you feel about yourself.
Right.
And how you feel about yourself, how much agency you have to go create the life you want, determines how you respond to stress. Let me give you an
Mhm.
example. You get a bill in the mail, it's for 50 bucks. If you've got $1,000 extra in the bank account, 50 bucks, you go, okay, you check and make sure it's the right bill and they're not getting you wrong, and you pay it. But if you get a bill for 150 bucks and you got 100 bucks in the bank, now you're sweating blood. Because you're like, I got to feed the kids. I got to put, that $4.25 a gallon gas in the tank. What am I going to do? So that ability is really relative and dependent. The more you see yourself as someone who has the ability to get up and go and do something that you can be at cause rather than at effect of things you don't want, right? The more you see and have identity as that, the better. So you and I both grew up in some similar circumstances, and we obviously didn't see ourselves as someone who couldn't. We saw ourselves as someone who's gonna. And that's what I would tell people is like the first thing is be here now, be in your body, and we'll give you a couple of tips in a second on how to relax that and get back into the relaxed brain. But be here now, be in your body, and recognize that you have a tremendous amount of power, more than you think, because social media, the politicians, all these big companies, they want you to believe that you're less than. In fact, I saw a guy who's a psychologist who said marketing is anti-happiness because it's got to tell
Mhm.
you you ain't enough, you don't have enough, you're not good enough, you're not dressed enough, whatever. This is a shirt from Costco. It's like
Mhm.
they tell you that you don't have enough, and that automatically puts you at stress. So just know you're already enough. You're a human being. You're born with a brain. Hopefully, you got two arms, two legs, and they both work, and you can go make things happen.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being enough, that's a huge thing with people nowadays. They don't feel that they are, and
Right.
it's truly sad because I remember watching an interview somewhere, and it was this guy, I forget his name, but he's one of these guys that was like really good at it's like some social media mogul.
Mhm.
Is Gary something, and V I think is anyways.
Yeah,
All I
Gary
know
Vee.
that part
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
And he was talking to this girl, and she was like, "One day I'm going to be somebody," and he goes, "Honey, you're somebody right now." You know what I
Yes.
mean? And it's and you could just see that look on her face that no one had ever said that to her. And
Right.
that's fucking heartbreaking.
Right.
The fact that someone would go through life not knowing that they feel I'll tell some personal shit here real quick.
Yeah.
But to go through life never feeling like they're good or worthy of love. We'll just put it that
Right.
way. So my father was very verbally abusive to me
Mhm.
because it was a projection of himself, right?
Yes.
It's exactly that's how he felt about himself. So he tried to imprint that shit on me, and
Right.
it still as a 46-year-old man, sometimes it creeps in and it still works.
Yep.
So you know what I mean. So I have not mental battles, but sometimes I have arguments with myself, and it's like
Mhm.
you are you're accomplished. You've done far more with your life than he ever did with his,
Right.
and it's not a contest. I'm not saying that I'm better than my father, but I definitely feel that yet again putting yourself into his perspective, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
learn like so he was born in 1927.
Right.
and he had me when he was 50, right?
Wow.
Oh, and when he grew up, you could bludgeon a kid and get away with it,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So, and it also that kids were meant to be seen and not heard. So,
Yes.
wasn't allowed to have opinion, wasn't allowed to have anything.
Right.
And, and then you add on the top of that to my mom, she was a live-in home health aide.
Mhm.
So she was only home every other weekend. So,
Wow.
it was a recipe for disaster when you have a
Right.
narcissistic father who wants to treat you like shit, right?
Right.
And so it was a perfect storm. So, I could be in the middle of setting up a very complex surgery, and it'll, you know, pop in the back of my head, "You aren't worth it," or "You
Right.
don't know what you're doing," and you go, "Shut up! I know I am." You know, there you go.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Dr. Daniel Amen,
Mhm.
and he has a process, and he calls it ANTS, ANTS, automatic
Uh-huh.
negative thoughts.
Yeah.
And so what you said is exactly right. Who is that voice? Like, I
Yeah.
know I can hear my mom's voice if I get like into doubt and uncertainty about myself, or something happens that just knocks me back on my heels. It's like I might hear my mom's negative voice when I was a kid or a teacher. I had a couple of really horrible teachers. Now I had a bunch of
Mhm.
good ones too, believe me, that made a
Yeah.
difference. But the most everybody, if you think about yourself, write down the 10 negative thoughts that have come into your head in the past month, whatever,
Mhm.
about yourself. If you
Right.
write those down, the next thing to do is say, where'd they come from? Because we are all renting space in our head from other people's negative comments about us. You didn't come up with
Exactly.
that as a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old. No,
Mhm.
like me, your mom or your dad or your teacher or bully or older sibling or somebody hammers down on us. And then we take that and go, well, it's sort of like, I'm trying to find something heavy here. I don't have anything heavy. I got a mug here. It's like,
Mhm.
so I was like, I was going to carry this mug around for the rest of my days. It's like, it's on my belief system right here. And you can
Mhm.
pour into it anything you want. I'm just going to drink it and believe it.
Yep.
That's what people do. And it's not
Mhm.
their fault.
I don't blame my parents for any of it. It all goes back to how they were raised and how the grandparents are raised, and
Yep.
it's just a cycle of this. We are creatures of our, like you said before, of our environment.
Yep.
And so my mom raised me how she was raised. And
Yep.
and my dad, his idea of raising me, if it was summer, it was out of the house until the street lights come on because he didn't want to be
Right.
bothered. I didn't know my mom that well because she was never around because she had to work.
Sure.
I found out after my mom met my stepdad what a
Okay.
nurturing relationship with my mother was because she was trying to raise a 14-year-old boy, a hormonal kid,
Right.
the best she could as a single mother. So it's,
Right.
it's a lot like what you went through. And she did the best she could with what she had. Then Fred came into our lives, and it wasn't all moonbeams and lollipops, because him and I butted heads because he was a
Yeah.
stubborn guy, I was a stubborn kid, but we found middle ground and we made it work. And that's
Right.
really what it makes life livable is when you can find that common ground and
Yes.
have an understanding and then move forward.
Right. It's a lot, man. It's
It is, it
we
is. Yeah. Well, I mean, we are so us as human beings. I don't even believe that we're 4-dimensional creatures. I believe we're 20-dimensional. I don't mean that in like some metaphysical way. Like I've said it before on the show. I'll say it again. Sorry, folks. When I train a new scrub tech at work, I tell them if somebody's giving you a hard time, let them have their bad day because you
Right.
don't know what they're going through at home, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
you 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 don't know if they're going through a divorce, financial trouble, they have a sick kid or something like that. So you have to take those people for how they are and what they're going through and try to put yourself in their perspective.
That's right.
And not and and a lot of people don't know how to do that because people can't see past their own shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 So
And it's and honestly, it's if someone is in that stress mode when they're young,
mhm. Yeah.
they don't go through the developmental stages as fast as they could because they're too busy still struggling and fighting with this level. They don't make
Mhm.
it to the next level, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's sort of like, did you ever play Dungeons and Dragons or any of those role playing games?
No, side note, I do want to get into D&D at some point in my
Okay.
life. But yeah, but go ahead.
Okay. Two things. One
Yeah.
is that in the game, you attain certain levels, like going up in rank in the military,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. If you never learn the game and how it works, you're going to stay at a lower level. You just keep getting killed. And
Right.
and so many people, their life is just one car accident after another,
Mhm.
metaphorically. And
Yeah.
they never grow up because they're too busy battling the demons in their head and the people they collect around them that have the same language. Typically,
Mhm.
what you'll see is, like, if you work in a hospital, like my
Mhm.
partner's a nurse, when
Yep.
when you work in a hospital, and she's validated this, I've seen it. You'll get the same people coming in with the same problems all the time.
Right.
and
Mhm.
and these groups hang out together. If you hang out at a bar where people are getting wasted every night and getting in bar fights, and you keep going back to that bar, you're going to get punched someday. Don't don't expect not to. So the whole thing is that you create the environment around you, and then you transcend that environment and move to the next level in life, right? And that, you know, and if you're training someone, you know that the level that you, and this is a parental thing too, you can only give what you have to someone. My mom and my dad didn't have the skills that I have, right? But I wouldn't have expected them to because they've developed in our country, in our psychology, and our philosophy over decades. So our grandparents didn't have any of that, right? It was seen and not heard. It's like smack the kid with it, you know, listen, bang, you know, go out and hard
Mhm.
work. You're 8 years old. What are you doing inside?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
in the winter, right? Go
Yeah.
walk back and forth to school both ways uphill. But it's like, you know, we can't expect other people. So we have to have the compassion to see them from a different point of view. Like you said, I love what you said. That is great. It's like don't essentially don't interrupt their bad day. Just
Right.
give them some space.
Mhm. Yeah.
And man, it's sometimes it's tough to do because if we're in a bad mood and they're in a bad mood,
Exactly. And
man,
yeah, there's times like I remember when I was in surgical tech school, it was my instructor's birthday. I bought the cake and I wanted it to be, just nice, is all.
yeah,
And one of the other students was bitching about it. We ain't got time for this, whatever. And then I turned red, like angry, and I
yeah,
just walked out of the room. And then one of the other senior instructors came in and says, "You're going to go far in this profession." And I go, "Why?" Because she's like, "You turned a lovely shade of red, didn't say shit, and left." As much as I, wanted to tell her what I thought of her at the moment, I didn't because words once they come out of your mouth, you can't take them back. You can
that's right.
apologize until you're dead, but it's sometimes some things are better off left unsaid, and it's and
Yes.
then because like when you say something wrong and you see the hurt on somebody else's face, it's devastating.
Mm,
And there's people that I joke around with, at work because it makes it fun, but I would never. And they know that I'm just kidding. It's not like a place of maliciousness. Like there's a woman I work with. She's short, and so every time she asks me, I'm like, "Do you need something off a shelf? Is that it?" Something schmarmy like that,
yeah,
and but it never comes from a place of malice. It comes from a place of just trying to get them to laugh.
yeah.
But the idea of just learning how to, like you said, take a step back, take a breath, and then let them do their thing, and then move on. And then but then if you have a mature person who was causing the problem, and later they come back a day or two later and apologize, that's a whole another level of individual,
Yeah.
because it's literally they're like, "Oh shit, I screwed up." And there's nothing worse than admitting you're wrong,
It's
you know?
hard.
It is. It's not fun because you feel that big,
Right.
but the moment that you do and you get that weight off you and then get
Yep.
again that de-stresses you and it brings you back to that center. As I get older, I realize that there's more important things to life than being right.
Man,
You know,
tell
I
me
would
about it.
I would much rather, you know, come to an understanding with somebody than arguing. That's why with the person that I had the problem with, I just caught myself. I was starting to raise my voice, and I said, "Nope, not doing it. Not bringing myself down. Let me get out of here." And then
Get
then
out of
I
here.
went and screamed into a towel or something.
So one of the things that I find that's so powerful, it's like knowing that we don't control the world, but we're still good people. And knowing that, you know, what people do, and they tend to do this, is that your identity is the primary driver of how you behave in life. Right? So if you see yourself as someone who's calm and relaxed, you're going to be calm and relaxed. If you and also Einstein said one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make is whether this is a good, loving, and kind universe or whether it's an evil and bad universe. And that's really important to know because if you think it's a good universe and it's happening for you, then everything's an opportunity to improve or grow or share or make a difference in the lives of another person. If you think everything, if it's an evil universe, everything's happening against you, then you're just looking out for who's going to come at you and you're just going to like take a swing at it no matter what. Right. And so that's a big difference in how you see the world because if it's happening for you and the universe is a good place, then you can grow and change it and excel and go get what you want in life. But if again, if you're the victim all the time, you're just sort of like that guy who keeps getting tumbled in the undertow and he can't get out and life just drowns you. And it's really hard because you see people and you know, I've worked with a lot of people and I can tell in the first couple of minutes what kind of worldview they have.
Mhm.
Right? And you can ask kind of questions. Here's a fun way to do it, Phil. It's like you never ask, "Hey, what's your stance on abortion? Are you
Right.
about baby killing?"
Yeah.
That's a
It's
total
not gonna
giveaway,
work.
right?
Yeah.
Or you know, what do you think about the Second Amendment? You okay that I got a rack of guns in the garage and a safe? You know,
Mhm.
so the way you approach someone to get to know them better is basically to say, hey, what do you think about that whole fill in the blank thing? Because
Mhm.
thing is neutral. It's a
Right.
thing.
Mhm.
And you don't put anything on it. You just listen to them. You say, okay, what is it you're thinking about that? Tell me about what your thoughts are. And also, the second thing is you can ask them when you want to get real personal. It's like, so tell me about the three hardest things in your life that you've ever done or have happened to you, right? Because and then tell me what the benefit was of those. Because I had to sit down once. I went to a men's group thing, and they had us write down the story of your life in terms of all the hard things that have happened to you.
Yeah.
And then the psychologist in the group turned it around and said, now tell me the benefit and the skill or the quality or the experience you got, the gems inside of all that that made you a stronger, better man.
Not yet again, not easy to do.
No, but it's easier to do in a group because everybody's cutting jokes and telling a story, the
Mhm.
stories about how they screwed up and,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
it
No,
can be
like,
done.
when you look at it from a perspective of that, like, so when you were talking about the universe for you or against you, I used to be a very against person
Mhm.
because of my upbringing, because, having to deal with my father, I keep bringing that up, sorry,
It's all right.
but, you don't know where the next one's coming from and everything was a fight, because you always felt that way, and
Right.
now that I'm older and I've gotten past all that, for the most part, life has become not as it's more of the what is it gonna do for me? You know what I
Right.
mean? As I've
Right.
gotten older. And I think a lot of this comes with age and time
Mhm.
because, like one time my nephew, he was complaining about something.
Right.
And this is brash what I said. He was like going off about something in school. And I said, dude, life hasn't begun to fuck you yet.
Right.
And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Dude, all you have to do is go to school for 6 hours a day." And
Right.
I'm not demeaning that, and I told him, I said, "I'm not demeaning your experience at all." I said, "It's rough. I understand it's a bunch of hormonal teenagers stuck in basically a prison for 6 hours. I get it." And it's and so it's all this crap. I get it. But when you get out of that and you graduate, you, 5 years down the road, you're not going to remember any of it because you
No.
got actual stuff to worry about. He
Right.
goes, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Bills, your car
Right.
payment, taking care of what you gotta take care of."
Right.
And if anybody is, like, fighting that and they just have to figure out what is gonna make them thrive. Yeah. So, um, but and then again, that's sometimes harder to do. It's like it's basically just finding your niche and what's gonna and I don't mean like a work thing. I mean, what's gonna help you relax and be happy, you know?
Right.
And I think that that's what people are finding so elusive these days is happiness in a nutshell, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two things that you made me think of. One is that I forget the name of the Navy SEAL, but I was watching a video by a Navy SEAL, and he said, when the attitude we have to have there is we have to go get a job done. And so we take the most positive attitude we can. Someone says, "Oh, but it's going to be raining that night." He goes, "Good, let's go." Right. And Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, looks like we're down a man. Good, let's go." Hey, turns out it's gonna be a full moon, so we're gonna be really visible and our cameras won't work right. Good, let's go. In other words, don't let the little things as my friend, Eric Forrester, who's a coach, says, turn every roadblock into a stepping stone,
Right.
right?
Yeah. That's
And
beautiful.
and the people that are powerful, like, Les Brown said, "It doesn't matter what town you come from, there's probably a bus out of there."
Yeah.
You know, there was I mean, my I lived in a town of about 1,500, 1,800 people when I was a kid. And there was a train out of there and a bus, so it's like got lucky. But
Yeah.
I really do believe that the hardest thing we'll ever do is get past ourselves.
There's a term, getting in your own way. There's something to that because people do it all the time because they're constantly worried or constantly stressed about stuff. And yet again, I don't mean to get too religious, but there's a passage that says, God will take care of you,
Right.
but some people, they get in their own shit and they can't get out of it.
Yeah.
So where does health and taking care of yourself fall into what you do?
I think it's basic. I mean, look, your body is the place
Mhm.
you operate from, right? If
Yeah.
you're a spirit, if you're a being, if you believe that, which I do, it's like, first of all, I would, not to get too religious, as you said, but I don't believe that God puts anything on your shoulders you can't carry.
Amen. Yeah.
In one
Mhm.
way or another, right? Whatever that
Yeah.
takes. The second thing is that this is your body temple, right? And I used to work a lot with health people, And one of the things I would say is that to help them understand the value of taking care of themselves, because you go into a hospital, you look around, a lot of people aren't taking care of themselves that work
Yeah.
there. Like, and you're in a hospital.
Mhm.
And so what I said was like, to a very religious person once, if you opened up the front door on a Sunday morning and you're going to go out and grab the paper or whatever, take the dog out for a walk, and there's a brand new Cadillac Escalade there and brand new, shiny and everything, sunlight comes down, beaming on it like it's coming from heaven. And there's a note that says, "From God, I love you, enjoy it, drive safely." Right?
Mhm.
Then you would polish that car, you would change the oil every 1,000 miles, you'd build a garage around it just to keep it safe, or you do all these things. And yet, what'd you get?
Right.
You got one already. It's just that we forget about it and we treat it like shit.
Yeah.
So we know this couple things. One is the quality of your sleep is the quality of your life,
Mhm.
oftentimes. Now, there's a lot of things you can do. I'm actually writing a book on sleep based upon a whole lot of neurological science and stuff, working with a lot of clients. But here's the thing: if you're sleeping well, you're probably your reservoir fills up. Your brain gets to heal at nighttime. Your
Mhm.
body recovers at nighttime. So you want a cold, dark, quiet room, 8 hours of deep sleep, and you want to de-stress before you go to sleep. Whether it's just doing some breathing exercises, little prayer, contemplative prayer, or meditation. Write down all the thoughts of the day, get everything out of your head. Write down what you're going to do tomorrow. Put out your clothes for tomorrow. Get everything all done so your brain's like, well, I'm good to go for the night, and
Mhm.
then get that sleep because
Yeah.
that will charge you up. The second thing is your body needs fuel. It's like that Cadillac Escalade. Well, you pour in there, you're going to put premium gas in that thing, right? If you got that that amazing
Yeah.
Cadillac from God, you'd pour
Right.
premium in there. You do whatever
Yeah.
it took. Well, why aren't we doing that with our bodies? And now look, I know groceries cost a lot, and they keep going up, and they keep going up, and the rising price of gas, and the lack of fertilizer because the state of Hormuz is going to cause all food to go up. And if you can, eat as high quality as you can because that's your fuel for your body, right? The next thing is, what are you filling your head with, right? Are you, here's a little private plug. Are you listening to Phil's podcasts every day? you know,
Right.
you want to fill your head with positive things, things that educate you and inform you, not crazy stuff on the internet, not
Mhm.
going down the conspiracy rabbit hole, but just things to understand the world from a better place. And are you filling your head with good things? Because if you got your sleep, you got your nutrition, you got your head in a good space and you're calm, relaxed, you're writing down all the problems in the world, getting them out of your head. If you're getting rid of those ants, those automatic negative thoughts, and you're questioning them, like you said, that's bullshit. That's not what I'm thinking. That's someone else. If you're doing that, and you've got something, you want connection to people. You want connection to friends. Like if you were, I mean, knowing you just a little bit that I do, if you were my neighbor, we'd be hanging out. I mean, like we have some
Mhm.
good conversations, make some great food, what have you, right? So get a number of people around you who care about you, who love you, that you can do the same thing. And then I would also say, go do good in the world. You know how you feel when you go down your street and you pick up trash? Or
Mhm.
you just like pay for the coffee for you're in front of someone and you just pay for the coffee at the drive-through, the old lady behind you in the old car, she's at the
Mhm.
drive-through, just pay for her food or coffee. Just do
Yeah.
it once a week, something like that if you can. It makes you feel so good. You start believing in yourself again.
Yeah. And it's also acts of service too, like what you're just mentioning. If you do good, you feel good,
Yep,
right? Yeah. And it's pretty simple. I mean, listen, it's literally just yet again, do unto others, right?
yep,
It's just be kind. And listen, there was a time in my life where I wasn't very kind to people because I had a big chip on my shoulder
right.
because I was mad. And I understand that now I'm not as mad as I was. I still have I get flare ups in traffic, but um, but I literally, I've gotten to the point now to where I just let stuff roll off
Yep.
like water on a duck's back. That's all I mean, but on that same token, sometimes letting it out is okay
Yeah,
because if you don't, you're gonna die of a heart attack. You know
that's
what I mean?
exactly right.
Like when I remember not that long ago I had an absolute monster of a day in the OR, and I was coming home, and there was a kid. He had a Mustang, and he came within inches of hitting me when he went in front of me. And that was the breaking point of the day. So he is in a convertible, was having a good time with his buddies, probably not paying attention,
Yep.
but it just caught me at the right, and I still feel terrible about it, but it still got me at the right moment. I drove past. I go, learn how to drive, motherfucker, like that. And he's like, oh God, he didn't even know he had done it, you know.
Right.
But to
Right.
me, he had almost killed me. I think that just he was having a good time. Hopefully, I didn't ruin it too much.
Right.
But you know,
He might
but
drive a
no,
little better and save some money on his insurance, you know?
maybe. And then learning how to discover yourself too, and learning how to be able to to have the wisdom to say, is this worth my energy? So when people come on my show, I ask them three questions. The first one is, what are two core beliefs that make you Jonathan?
Two core beliefs. One about me, but I also apply it to everybody else. It's like, I'm human. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna learn. Failure is just data unless I do it again, then it's on me. You
Right.
know, don't repeat that same mistake twice, hopefully.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, sometimes it's three times. And that we can learn and we can grow, and that if we will have compassion and consideration and empathy for other people while also keeping good boundaries, then I feel I'm able to navigate the world in a better place. The second thing is I believe that I'm a constant learner. I was actually kicked out of class as a kid for fighting. I kicked out of school actually as a kid for fighting.
Hmm.
And my teacher before that happened, about 6 months before that happened, started taking me to the library every day and dropped me off for a couple hours because she couldn't handle me because I
Yeah.
was just a mess, right?
Hmm.
And so as a result, I got a whole bunch of books and I got a whole nother set downstairs. I read a lot. I learned a lot because that teacher was nice enough to speak, goodness into my ear and take me to
Hmm.
the library and drop me off. And the,
Yeah.
the librarian taught me about books. So I would say anybody can learn. Forgive yourself, move forward. We can all grow and learn. And here's the other one. You're not the worst thing you've ever done or the worst
Right.
multiple things you've ever done. You're not
Yeah.
that. That was an experience that happened, but that's not you. You are someone who can grow and learn and mature and create a life within the realm of your own possibility, the best life you can. None of us are going to be flying Lear jets or whatever they're called, Gulfstreams or whatever, but
Hmm.
we can be good people. We can make a difference. We can help others and just be a good human and have a good time, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. And then the second question is, you're about to shove off the mortal coil, go to
Yep.
the next life. What do you want to be remembered for?
I actually wrote a book and it says, I don't want you to remember me.
Okay.
It makes me kind of emotional, but I wrote a book about quitting smoking. And what I wrote in there was I said, I don't want you to remember me. I just want you to quit. I just want you to learn these tools and have a better life. I don't matter. All the things I've collected, whether it's my philosophy or whatever, it's just coming through me. It's coming out into the world. I've just been lucky enough and blessed enough to have all these good teachers and, an open mind after getting my butt kicked so young. Um, Remember, just maybe as a good person, a nice guy like everybody else,
Yeah. Good. And the third one, what makes you happy?
hanging out with people.
There you go. Yeah.
Hanging out with people. That's number one, like this, hanging out. Just, I mean,
Mhm.
like I said, if we were neighbors, I'd walk over after this podcast and say, hey, man, I was just on this guy named Phil. Awesome. We just had a good time,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
hang out and make a nice tea.
Yeah, cool.
So, one of the things I do on my podcast, and I should probably roll back and grab you on mine. Um, the question I like to ask is if you had the God microphone or the universal microphone to talk into every human being's ear on the planet and you had 30 seconds, what would you tell them?
Listen and understand.
Nice.
Because I think if we took more time to listen to people and to get in them, and if you listen to them, you'll understand them better, I think. You know,
Absolutely.
this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. So,
Thank you.
where can people find you?
Yeah. So I have a YouTube channel. I'll send you the link. You can throw it down below in the notes. But if you're a smoker, I have an incredible program that helps people. It's got a 100% success rate for people who follow the program. It's called StopSmokingForever.life. And my dad died of lung cancer and it metastasized to his brain. It was brutal and not nice. And I've seen so many people struggle. You've seen it in the hospital with all the things you've done. Yeah, it's a horrible, brutal disease. And if we can help people quit, that's my jam. I love doing that.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.